Hey, get the fuck up out my kitchen. Don't worry about what I'm up in there fixing. I'll call your ass in a minute.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is September 16th, 2020. This is episode 14 of the Late Bloomer Podcast, Purple Rain and Homeless Pain. Okay, that's corny, but I'm gonna stick to that. I'm gonna stick to that name, that title. I'm gonna stick to my guns on that title because I've already written it down. Anyway, my guest today is Gregg Kennard. He's a program director and state representative, not a congressman, for the state of Georgia, District 102 in Gwinnett County. It's not really super funny, super silly, but I think you'll enjoy it. Gregg Kennard runs a really great program called Nspire. You can go to nspireoutreach.com. That's Nspire outreach.com. And check them out. And you could donate to the cause. I'll put a link in the description on where you can donate. But yeah, great show, reflective. I was actually in his transitional housing program at one time, and 8 years later, I think, I've been out of the program and doing my own thing. Got 2 kids, was married for a little bit. You know, I did my thing, my thug thizzle. Hey, go ahead and check out Hempy Llama Tea as well. That's HEMPYLLAMATEA.com. Fusing together organic hemp and tasty blends of organic tea to help humans feel more at ease. I've drunk it. I've drank it. I done drunk it. I done drinked it. And it's pretty fire. Makes me get the best sleep that I've ever gotten. Because I do tend to be on edge a little bit after I record these podcasts. So anyway, check them out. And also check out typicaldiv.com and get some of that fresh roasted local coffee. Thanks so much.
Keeping it organic.
What's going on, everybody? This is Spooks McGee with the Late Bloomer Podcast. Yo, I'm dead-ass a broadcaster. That's crazy, man. And I just got another one of my dope sponsors to send me some fresh coffee from Kenya. Oh, that's good. Typical Div makes 100% Arabica coffee, and he roasted this thing. This is the Kenya roast, and I'm about to drink it right now. Again, hold on. Yeah, that's the sound of me drinking that fire. So in 2015, they came up with the idea for the title Neat. And because hip-hop should be simple and pure, back then, he made his own whiskey. But not only did they enjoy their drinks straight with no chaser, they also lived and loved by the same mantra. So in 2017, they started roasting coffee. It was ironic that black coffee is neat too. Think about it, man. Black coffee is neat. He's talking about black coffee roasters, bruh. Come on, son. Anyway, that's enough of that. Also, shout out to Hempy Llama. It is a really great CBD tea that is based. I think they're in LA. I don't remember. Anyway, they're a really great company. I really like the product, and they've been considering using me as a brand ambassador. But we're working on that. We're working out the kinks. So I'll put the link in the description for their website as well. But I wanted to introduce my guest today. His name is Gregg Kennard. That's 2 G's. So Mr. Gregg Kennard, program director for the Nspire Outreach, pastor, as well as congressman. And just all around great guy, musician, and just a good friend and a good father and a good husband. And a great example to a lot of young people out there, and our future president, right?
No way.
President Kennard, come on. It'll be huge.
Now, to correct one thing, I'm not a congressman, I'm a state representative, so Georgia has a 180 representatives from across the state that come down to the Capitol.
Right,
to
my bad. Sorry
legislate.
about that. You're right.
And so
State
the state government is set up like the federal government.
No.
So
Sorry about that. State representative for District 201?
102.
102. See? My brain is all backwards, Greg.
Yeah. So the state government, it mirrors the federal government in the fact that it has three branches: executive, which is the governor, and then the judiciary, which is, of course, the court system. And then there's the legislative branch, which is broken up into a state senate and a state of House of Representatives.
Well, there you go. That's the social study lesson.
Yep.
I always thought it was interesting that we still have a president, to be honest, because if all those different things are in play, then why do we need a face for everything that we do, you know?
Yeah, it's the framers set it up in the Constitution, those three branches, but it never intended for the executive branch to overpower the other two branches.
Right.
That gets pushed sometimes, but there's checks and balances.
Yeah. But anyway, enough of that. If you want to properly introduce yourself, so I don't screw it up this time, go ahead.
No, you got it right. Gregg Kennard, the pastor and founder of Nspire Outreach,
Yes.
which has been a church for 21 years, and the mission of our church is always to be outreach-minded and work with those in the margins, disenfranchised. So we have a transitional program that works to end homelessness, and another one that works to end domestic violence. And so we've been doing that for 14 years and assisted thousands of people. And there's been a lot of great stories and experiences. And it's actually my work at Nspire that led me to elected office, because I see where the social issues of even homelessness, domestic violence, poverty, it's really impacted by policy and legislation at the state level. So working on individual behavior in the program, that my elected official position allows me to work on the systemic and structural edifice that is creating some of these outcomes to begin with. So,
You know what? I want to talk to you about all of those things, but this is a show where I kind of talk about some things that I missed out on growing up. And as a musician, one of the things that I think you would find extremely interesting that I missed out on is the entire Prince phenomenon. And so,
I don't know if we can continue this podcast now. Now that I know that you have no body of work with Prince, you have no frame of reference. What? How did you miss that?
That's why I started the show. Prince was like probably one of the bigger ones that people were so surprised about. Being a black man in America, to never have, seen Purple Rain or listened to any Prince album in its entirety, it's actually pretty interesting that I was able to miss that. And so
not just being a black man in America, just living in America. How did you miss that?
I was in my own little bubble. I really was. I was in the SDA bubble. The Seventh-day Adventist Church is, and my grandmother was very adamant about the Sabbath. And so when the Sabbath hit, I did what I had to do, which was go to church and not talk to nobody and not watch no movies and watch nothing. And I just never got into Prince. I just missed it.
Well, have you caught up?
Okay, so I watched the film, expecting to see like a really corny 80s film that was just like cheesy, and I was actually super surprised at how well made the film was. The use of lighting, the acting. Prince is a good actor. All the other supporting cast members, they're great actors. I was like, this is insane. How am I able to, how did I miss this? And how am I seeing something that is so old, seems so refreshing and new? The performances were great. The humor was funny. They poked a lot of fun at certain things that, I always liked, like, the Abbott and Costello, I think, Who's on First type, comedy. Like, I saw these types of little, vignettes or not vignettes, but, homages that they paid to a lot of things that I already like. And so I really appreciated the film. And also the underlying themes, domestic violence, following your dreams, the competitive nature of music and art. It was really inspiring. It kept me up for a couple of days thinking about it.
Well, good for you. And then, of course, the music soundtrack.
Right. So that's the thing that I have to get to. The next step is I'm gonna do my little 10-minute reviews for stuff that I've seen. So I'm gonna talk about the film, but then I'm gonna also do I'm gonna listen to the whole catalog, the album and for Purple Rain that goes with the movie, and then I'm also gonna listen to a lot of different albums I'm just gonna listen to the whole catalog, and I'm gonna review the catalog as time goes on. So maybe I'll become a Prince fan. Who knows?
Yeah, I think you will. That's my prediction.
I mean, here's the thing. I didn't completely miss out on the 80s. I really, really love Stevie Wonder. I really love a lot of the disco stuff from the 70s, late 70s, early 80s, like, Donna Summers and Chic. And I really like, the Pointer Sisters and... I've really taken a liking to that 4 to the floor disco drum thing. It's kind of like a heartbeat, like it's just like It makes you feel like And then I thought about like how rich the culture was. I mean, it was kind of suggestive and vulgar, the whole lifestyle as of disco people. But what they were creating was something that threatened society so much that they went on a campaign to kill disco. So I really did like a lot of things about 80s sounds, 80s music, that gated snare, the crazy music videos that came out, Queen. I mean, there's so much things about the 80s and the pop art and the culture of that I'm starting to really take a liking to, so much so that some of the aesthetics that I've chosen in my own art has, mirrored that. But
the 80s was a great decade for a lot of things, including music.
So what was it like for you seeing that for the first time, that Prince,
Yeah, I was, I watched the movie. I was more in tune with the music. That's why it got my attention. So
right.
The soundtrack, and, you just got some classic Prince that has become some of his greatest hits with, of course, Purple Rain. And then probably my favorite Prince song is When Doves Cry.
Yeah.
So all that's from the soundtrack. I Would Die for You, Let's Go Crazy. Yeah, so that's just some of the vintage Prince material on that soundtrack.
Okay. Well, as a musician, what do you think about his musical ability?
Off the charts, genius. I mean, the way Eric Clapton. Yeah. It's been said that Eric Clapton says, "What is it?" Someone asked Eric Clapton, "What's it like to be the greatest guitar player in the world?" He said, "I don't know. Ask Prince."
That's awesome. So
he was so diverse and eclectic, and so many different sounds, unique sounds, otherworldly sounds that we had never heard before. And still, his music has its own personality, its own fingerprint. Nothing sounds like Prince. And then he did, that old Michael Keaton, Jack Nicholson Batman movie. He did the soundtrack for that movie.
Right,
so
wasn't he
great
supposed
stuff
to play
there.
the Joker or the Riddler or something?
Jack Nicholson was the Joker. Michael Keaton was the Batman. This was another 80s breakout movie, the Batman series.
No, I meant, wasn't Prince supposed to play one of the Batman villains?
I didn't hear that.
Oh, okay. But this is what I was going to ask you. What did you think about his religious beliefs, like as being a Jehovah's Witness, and where he stood as far as spiritually? Did you ever think about that kind of stuff, or that never crossed your mind?
I never really connected those dots. Everybody's got a brand of faith. Most people do. And the real thing is that we have an experience with God. Religion tries to put a box on God that never works out. So, our experience with the divine is what is eternal. The faith tradition, whatever denominational framework, that is not eternal. That's a human structure. So everybody's kind of got a weird relationship with the religion that they grew up with. I know I do. For the most part, I benefited from my Pentecostal roots, right. and I appreciate them. But at some point, you kind of grow past the Sunday school Jesus you had, and some of those relics of faith that serve as a foundation. But as you continue to grow as a human being, as a spiritually awakened person, you outgrow some of that, I believe.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that too. So, you grew up in the South, in the Pentecostal church, as a white Southerner. You said that when you were younger, you were not like super wealthy. Like you guys, I think at one point early on, had a hard life.
I wouldn't say it was hard. We had everything we needed.
Right.
Grew up the first 18 years of my life. I grew up in a trailer park. What was maybe the biggest challenge of that is I grew up in Gwinnett County during that time, which all around us was a lot of wealth and middle upper class neighborhoods. Yeah. So, grew up being I was kind of certainly an anomaly.
Right.
But it was fine. My mom and dad loved us. We had a very nice home culture and family tradition, and so it was just a great place to grow up ultimately.
Okay. So when you were living in the trailer park, it was just kind of like a means to an end to get to something better and bigger?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly has expanded my worldview since, I came out of the trailer park. I was in the trailer park, but the trailer park didn't get me.
You can take me out the hood, but you can't take me out the trailer park.
Yeah. So, but that and my grandfather was my pastor, Pentecostal church, small. Right. As soon as I started taking piano lessons, I became the church pianist, and then kind of, really gained some of my chops. It was a great experience because I got some real live experience every Sunday playing in front of people. And,
right.
So it really honed my skills, that whole thing.
When you were a child, was music, what did you think that you were going to do with music? I know that there were several things that you had pursued. I know that you had a possibility of being a professional baseball player, and that you were the leader, the musical leader for some different churches at some points in your life.
Yeah, I had a couple of things that was going on. I was a pretty good athlete, and the more I took piano lessons, the better I got, and I had, a natural gift as well. And then I, practiced, and trained, and worked hard, and had a kind of a proficiency towards jazz music, pop music, and so there were some opportunities musically. I had a scholarship, a jazz performance scholarship at a couple of schools, and then at some point I was playing varsity baseball as a freshman for a pretty big high school in Gwinnett, and my coach at the time, he was kind of a secondary scout for a couple of professional teams, and he thought I was developing in a way that may be a career path for me. Ultimately, I got to my senior year. I pretty much had locked in on the music thing, and was pretty decided about going to school for jazz, and already applied to the school. They had already offered a scholarship. I already had my roommate picked out. But then that summer, right before I went to school, I just had it was a revelation, really, that wasn't my ultimate path. And I changed gears and felt a call to ministry and pastoring. And so I did music ministry and went to Bible school, became ordained. And that's really the only vocation I've ever had. And that's been over 30 years now.
Wow. So this passion to help the homeless, if I'm not mistaken, sort of started when you were a child and you had brought someone from the streets into your house?
Yeah, well... The pastor of the church I was attending when I was in my late teens, his son founded Safe House Outreach in 1982, and I was going to their church at the time, and they were talking about this new ministry and new program with helping people on the streets of Atlanta. So I started volunteering, going down there. I was 17, 18, spend most of my weekend down there just helping serve people with food, talking to them about their situation. And several occasions, actually, I was doing that on a Saturday night and got to talking to a person, and really wanted to help them somehow.
Yeah.
So I'd call my parents and say, hey, do you mind if I bring this person home tonight so they can get a hot shower and some food and go to church with us in the morning? And my parents were always good sports. There were some pretty interesting stories now that I think about it.
Do you care to tell one or just one? Just one?
No, it happened multiple times. And like I said, my parents were always very, very accommodating.
Right.
But that's when kind of that particular social issue got on my radar and in my heart. And then, my faith, and which is, basically the teachings of Christ. You can't read too far into the Gospels, and you don't flip too many pages where you see Jesus talking about the poor and those in need, and how much that was at the center of his mission, really. And so when something's just kind of, you feel a natural affinity for it, plus your faith tradition really lends itself to this kind of issue. It's just always been in my heart, and now with Nspire, we're actually have developed a program that's pretty effective at ending homelessness for many people.
Do you, being in the South as a Pentecostal, probably a lot of conservative people who have traditional thoughts and ideas. I'm from New Jersey, and I didn't realize how common it was for there to be this disdain for people of color, this just general default sort of mindset that the South has normalized. And I find it interesting that you, growing up around all of these type of conservative people, have such I would say progressive idea of what systematic racism, systematic oppression, and prejudice in general, how it's affected the growth of people's personal lives. I mean, you look at the makeup of your client base. They're all white people and Hispanics, very few Asian people, but also a lot of African Americans.
Well, the more I did this work, you start seeing patterns. You start seeing kind of predictable results or situations. A typical client for us is a person of color, as you mentioned, usually low academic achievement, poor literacy. Usually there's a mental health diagnosis. Usually there's addiction involved, and oftentimes overwhelmingly, most of the cases and most of our clients have a felony background. So you start looking at it and say, why is this the way it is, and why does these same things keep happening to these people in these situations that grew up in this environment? And so you start doing a deep dive into it all, and the more you talk to people, the more you learn their story. You start understanding, this is the result of largely, of course, of some personal choices, but it's also people in desperate situations and growing up without proper resources. And so, again, you start connecting all the dots and trying to understand the situation better. And you understand that there's that poverty is not only behavioral, but it's also structural.
Right.
And there's a system in place. My favorite Dr. King quote is that true compassion is not just flinging a coin at a beggar, but it comes to understand that an edifice that creates beggars needs to be restructured. So there's probably will always be some level of poverty and homelessness that just can't be 100% eradicated, but the levels of homelessness and the levels of poverty and the levels of mass incarceration, that's because there's a system in place that's producing these outcomes and these results.
So I know that you've spoken about this before, but in our lifetime, in the next 10 to 15 years, is it possible that we could actually change this? Or is it going to be something that is so deep-rooted and deeply, Yeah. It's
not going to be solved in our lifetime, 100%. But I think we can gain some ground. You know, the racial justice discussion that's happening in our country, I feel like for this year, it's been the most authentic conversation we've ever had, and some real things have been said, and there's been some greater understanding. Of course, it's still a lightning rod issue, and there's some very strong feelings around it, but I do think there has been some progress made, and you know, we just got to keep talking about it and keep working through it. And it's going to be mostly people like me, who look like me, who were raised like me, that has to do most of this work, because white privilege, white supremacy, it's a real thing. It's deceiving. Usually people who have it don't understand it, don't believe they have it, they're blind to it, and that's a problem. But you know, the more people that kind of look like me, believe like me, you know, I've kind of got all the great identities as far as they carry a lot of cultural currency. I'm white
in the United States.
I'm a male.
Yeah.
I'm a Christian.
Yeah.
I'm straight. I'm able-bodied. So, you know, I've kind of got all the cards. I've got a royal flush.
Right. But Greg, how can there be white privilege? It doesn't make any sense. I'm poor, and I've never been poor. My mama's been poor. My mama's mama was poor, and we never owned slaves.
Yeah, but it's not because you're not poor because you're white. You know, there's racism, which is a specific structure and system in place that keeps the dominant group in control. And so that system is definitely in place, and that's why we see all the gaps that we see in just about every space you can think of. Economically, white families statistically have 13 times more wealth than black families. Our health outcomes are better. The educational outcomes are better. So across the board, home ownership, you know, it's staggeringly better. Far more white families own homes than do people of color. So that, you know, you can't just say this just happened in a vacuum. No, this happened by a design. And if you have to objectively look at it to understand it. So, but I think I'm optimistic. I really am.
Well,
there's a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. So, as far as work that needs to be done, I think that there's a really great thing that you're doing. I just got off of a podcast where I pretty much was talking to them about what it's like being homeless in Atlanta, in downtown Atlanta. And to be honest, it's kind of fun. Not going to lie. There's so much distractions that can keep you from your goals and from focusing on what needs to be done that it's just a lot that you could do and you can get into where you could just, you know, spend the day just, you know, dilly-dallying and doing whatever, and then, you know, eating and chilling and playing cards and whatnot. But when you guys came to the Safe House to preach that day, I had to go and get the money to hop on that bus to get to you guys. And I was thoroughly impressed with the transitional housing program. But the crazy part is that when I came in 2009, I believe it was, it wasn't as evolved as it is now.
No.
Yeah, I didn't have access to a lot of the resources that clients have nowadays. And even then, I was super, like, I had a lot that I could do in the time that I was there, you know?
Right, yeah. The program is not the same this year as it was last year. We're continuing to evolve, and so I think we're doing it better than we've ever done it. But, you know, from 2009, I mean, we started the program in 2007, so you were in our first few years, but it's definitely grown and adapted and evolved for sure.
So how does that work? Do you guys, well, I already know how it works, but can you tell the people how it works? I mean, there's several different streams of income. It could be between client, program fees, government grants, and the clothing drives that you guys do with Park Avenue Thrift and other places.
Sure. Yeah, we have about, you know, probably 4 or 5 buckets of income. One is we're a church. We have offerings.
Right.
People pay tithes, and then also we do get a few foundation grants here and there. There is a client share, cost share, that allows us to serve more people at a time. So the program subsidizes 2/3 of the cost, and roughly the client pays 1/3, and that helps them to understand some personal responsibility, have some skin in the game, and have with some real life money management, financial skills. But then one of our major sources of income is our clothing drives. There's thousands of people that give clothes to us every week. And so there's 4 things that we do with the clothes. One is all of our clients get new wardrobes. People that call in from the community in need of clothes, we help as many of those as we can. When we do inner city outreaches, like at Safe House, we always take clothes with us to dole out to the men and women there on the streets. But then the 4th thing we do for the clothing that we do not have a direct use for is they're sold in a thrift store, and it creates a revenue stream to help us afford the other hard costs of the program, like residences. We'll spend $26,000, $27,000 a month in just housing costs between apartment rents, utilities, insurance,
maintenance,
and then we have
stuff like that.
we have a fleet of vans, passenger vans that provide transportation to work, to appointments, to doctor appointments, probation appointments, and then of course just the other things like counseling and therapy. We have a small staff that takes up a little bit of that income, but we between all the income, it's about $1 million a year that we're able to help 70 people at a time in residence. And so there's a lot that goes into it. We operate very frugally. We're very wise. We get a lot of bang for our buck that we spend. But at the end of the day, when you're talking about 70 people, there's a lot of hard costs. So once the clients start working, they pay a program fee. It's somewhere between $450 and $500.
Right.
The overall cost for each client is about $1,500 a month. So we pay 2/3, they pay 1/3, and it teaches responsibility, as I mentioned, helps them get into the rhythm of paying some of their bills, so that when they get on their own, they already kind of have those skills under their belt, and it allows us to help more people at one time.
See, that's the thing that really tripped me out about the whole situation that you guys have set up. It's like, okay, within 24 hours of you getting on the thing, you got a job, you got clothes, you got a stipend in your pocket, you going to church, you got a counselor, you're working out, you're back in school, you have a laptop. After like the 3rd or 4th week, you got a laptop, you're back in school. You're like, it's just like, it's crazy. I can't think of. I personally might not be too familiar with a lot of transitional housing programs, but I personally cannot find anything that is even remotely close to what you guys have done or are doing.
I don't know any other program exactly like it. We do a lot, and honestly, we can't solve every problem, but we're pretty comprehensive. It's kind of a one-stop shop. There's a few things that we sub out. Like we do have a therapist, but we don't have a psychiatrist, so we rely on the local mental health treatment center to provide psychiatry for our clients. Right. But we do have a health workout program, personal trainer, and we have a GED preparation program. So, there's a lot of resources that can, if someone is really ready to change, they can do that and Nspire for real.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm not going to lie. I was one of the first few clients, but I was also a young guy that's kind of goofy and stupid and lacked focus because I never really got a chance to really do the things that I wanted to do. But I really appreciate you guys for bearing with me and also for providing that outlet for me to do what I wanted to do. I mean, you bought the whole studio. Of course, things happened where that was robbed, but the fact that you cultivated my scatterbrainness and found a way to utilize me, it's a testament to how you guys, might have a general program for just clients, but you also, have an individual focus on each client's personal needs. And my need was to be creative, and you allowed me to have that platform. And it kept me from, doing anything super stupid. But, I mean, aside from being a nuisance, I wasn't really that that problematic, and it became a part of this this community that I think it's like what 6 or 7, maybe 8 years after I've left the program, I'm still here and I'm still involved and I'm still trying to help you guys do what y'all are doing, and it hasn't changed. I still sing with you guys. I'm still there. I mean, I'm still part of the family, and I think that most of the clients are like that. Like even if they do other things or go other places, they always can come back and Nspire's right there. You know.
Sure. Well, for some, we kind of become family, like you. I consider you a brother, and it's just what you add to even our church experience on Sundays with your musical abilities. It's just a blessing.
Thank you.
And so, when you feel a connection that goes beyond just being a client in a program, but then you really get to know folks, and your destinies are intertwined either for a while or maybe sometimes longer. And but it's a great experience.
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. So what is the ultimate goal? I know that you guys have had some ideas to do some like big kind of compound situation, like a huge living environment. Are you guys still trying to do that in due time? I mean, I saw the blueprint for the big old facilities and that type of thing. I know that that's a long way away, but is that still a goal?
Sure it is. We're just kind of wide open. We've created a vision board, and one of the things that's on our corporate vision board is like a multi-purpose property where there's housing, there's some industry and jobs, and
gym,
there's
barbershop,
live, work, play, and maybe some shops and stores, and all a place for entrepreneurs that come to the program to have a place to kind of experiment with, and that's still in our heart. We're just kind of waiting on God's timing with it all.
Right. But that's amazing. I really appreciate what you guys are doing out there. I appreciate you coming on the show and talking about what you guys are doing out there. Is there anything that you had on your mind or on your heart that you wanted to talk to the people about in general?
Well, I think it's, I feel very blessed to have found my purpose, my calling. I found it pretty early, fortunately. And so life has been, pretty exciting. I live the life I love. I love the life I live. Some people wake up to an alarm clock. I wake up to a calling every day and just live with a sense of purpose. And I think everybody should really make that a primary objective, where you find a vocation, you find work, you find things to get involved in that looks like you, that feels like you. And so, I think that's a worthwhile endeavor for everybody to kind of figure that out. I believe God has a purpose and an assignment. There's a will for your life, and you don't decide what it is, you discover what it is, because it's kind of like a predestiny. It's in you before you even begin this journey. God sees the end from the beginning. Before we were even in our mother's womb, there was a purpose and an assignment on our life. So I just like to encourage the audience to really dig deep, look within, and find that. There's 2 great days in your life, the day that you were born, and the second day is the day that you figure out why you were born. So I think that makes all the difference in the world and how your life goes, and how, God doesn't want us just to live life. Jesus said, I have come that you may have life, comma,
and life more abundantly.
Comma, and life more abundantly. So which side of the comma are you living on? Are you living in just life or life more abundantly? And I think that's an important spiritual journey that everybody should take.
I really appreciate that. That's amazing, And also something that you've said on numerous occasions that I really like is the magnification. Like there's a scripture that says that, "Oh, magnify the Lord, for he is worthy to be praised." And they had a song, "Oh, let's magnify the Lord." But what you say is really interesting. What are you magnifying? Like, are you magnifying the darkness or the light? Are you magnifying God? Are you magnifying, and I think that's interesting, because the idea of like your focus and your expansion on that focus is based on your ability to expand on that focus. And if you magnify, you can literally magnify God in your life by just really focusing on it intensely.
Yeah. So we don't want to magnify our problems. We want to magnify our God. And the thing is, when you magnify something, you don't make it bigger than it actually is. You make it bigger to you.
You make it bigger to you.
So when I magnify God, I'm not making God bigger, but I'm making him bigger in my life.
In your scope.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Well, I really appreciate you, Greg. There's one thing that we do on the show that we often talk to people about the music that they're listening to. I've been listening to a lot of, vintage sounding 80s music that was made in the 2020s. A lot of there's a huge market for these musicians who are making music that sounds vintage, but it's recently made. So a lot of people like Tuxedo and this other artist named I can't remember her name. Now it's escaped me. But she made a straight up disco album in 2020. People like Toro Yumoy, people like Kaytranada that are making music that has really nice round vintage sound. That's what I've been listening to a lot. As of late, what are you listening to?
Pretty much exclusively the Hamilton soundtrack.
So ever since the Hamilton dropped, you've been watching that, listening to it.
I've been watching it, and it's pretty much just on a loop. I mean, it's just every time I listen to it, I figure something else out. The Hamilton experience. If you like history, you'll love Hamilton. If you like musical theater, you'll like Hamilton. If you like hip hop, you'll like Hamilton. But if you like all three, oh my God, it's just incredible.
Well, I have to take the time to watch it because I've heard about it, and I'm a late bloomer, Greg.
You missed Prince. Now you can't miss Hamilton. Don't make that same mistake again.
I won't. I'm gonna get that. Was it Disney Plus? And I'm gonna watch that thing. I'm gonna make sure that I watch it, and I'm gonna put the soundtrack on too, because I'm not throwing away my shot, Greg.
Yeah, that's just one song of many that will just blow you out of the water.
Wow. Yeah, Lin-Manuel Miranda at first really annoyed me. I just didn't like him. He just bothered me, because as a hip hopper, I don't know. I know you don't really listen to rap and hip hop like that, but it sounded like hip hop light to me. It always bugged me how it didn't sound authentic like a real MC to me. But I hear that it pays homage to a lot of the things that I love about hip hop, and I should give it a chance.
Yes. Yeah, it's you won't be disappointed.
I won't. I know I won't, because everyone that I've heard has seen it is like, oh my gosh, it's incredible. There's this guy that I watched, Double Toasted, and he always talks about reviews on movies and things. He's not really into Broadway and stuff, but he was talking about this thing it was the best thing he's seen in his entire life, and he's in his late 40s. So yeah, I gotta get on that.
Yeah.
So
it's all that. It's all that. It really is.
Aside from the Hamilton thing, what else are you listening to?
No, that's it. Hamilton.
Just Hamilton all day.
Yeah.
Well, in a couple of months, you'll be listening to your Christmas music because that's what you want, right?
Yeah. Right.
This man has the hugest Christmas music collection I've ever heard ever.
Yeah.
And so pretty much you're saying that Nspire Outreach is going to resume physical services in the beginning of October?
Yeah, we are. It's we're not going to really open up to the public just yet. So that'll be a little bit down the road. But for our current membership and those who regularly attend, we'll be going back to a 2-service format, kind of splitting everybody up into a smaller group. We'll social distance, we'll mask, and we'll resume some in-person services. We've been kind of doing Zoom for a few months now, but I think we're confident that we can do this safely now.
Okay. Well, thank you, Greg. I don't want to hold you for too long. I know you're a busy man. You got lots of things going on, lots of moving and shaking and stuff that you got to do. And so
Yep.
I appreciate you taking the time to get on my little janky show.
I appreciate the opportunity, Owen.
Thank you, Greg, for everything. You're a great mentor, and I hope to speak to you again soon.
Okay, thanks.
All right, everybody. That was Gregg Kennard. He's a pretty dope dude, man. Not gonna lie. And so, just thinking about in retrospect the way that things have gone, it's just crazy, man. It's just crazy that I'm able to stand here and talk to you guys about music and art. in the comfort of my home when I was literally like in the streets homeless. And I try to keep the show light and goofy and silly. But you know, sometimes I remember very vividly the stuff that happened to me when I was out there. And it kind of makes me a little bit upset, I'm not gonna lie. Because I understand that you need to go through some things in order to like grow and all that stuff, but it's dark. And I laugh about it and I make silly, funny jokes about it, but it's nothing funny. I don't think that there's really a way that we could avoid this. That the way that life is set up right now, pretty much being a black man in America, you're gonna have to deal with something. It doesn't matter how smart you are, how educated you are. It doesn't matter how talented you are. It doesn't matter how funny you are. If you look a certain way, you could end up homeless, in the streets, trying to figure out what's the next move. It's depressing. So I want to make sure that I find a way to keep it from being so dark and sad, because it's very, very sad. It's a sad situation that we live in. This is a sad, sad, sad thing. As Trump would say, sad. And I don't know what to do about it. And this podcast is not my soapbox where I can preach to people about how upset I am about the plight of the black man in America. But sometimes I put my fist up. But what is that for? I'm punching at the air. It doesn't do anything. I feel powerless. And I hope that people like Gregg continue to do the work for the powerless to gain power again. Because we all have a little bit of power. And that power is being revoked from us. And there's nothing we can do about it. This thing that I'm doing here, I'm fighting. I'm fighting against the system and against mediocrity. I want to be something more than just some dude that's just like going to work every day. I'm tired. And you see me making stuff all the time. Little vignettes, little cover songs, a podcast, music, a music video, a funny skit, something, anything. I have to create. And if I don't do it, then I'm going to lose my mind thinking about the situation that I'm in. And the situation that I'm in is that no matter what I do, no matter how hard I do it, nobody cares, and they're not going to do anything about helping me. And I have nothing to do but help myself. And that's a lot of pressure to put on a person. So I have to make sure that I don't boil over, that I don't get upset. I don't allow myself to become overwhelmed by that situation. I have a theory. I call it the boil over, the boiled water theory. That if you let water boil over to the point where it's like the highest level of being boiled, that it takes about 2 or 3 hours for it to go back down to room temperature. And so when we get upset and angry, we can literally generate heat. Our body temperature rises. We can literally boil inside of us. And I feel like if I let myself boil over, I lose myself. I do dumb things, and I don't think. And I don't want any of you to let this frustration cause you to boil over, because When you're at full boil, you can burn somebody. And you can burn yourself too. Please, I know this is a goofy, silly show. I try to keep it lighthearted. But I'm really, really tired of fighting. And I really feel that I'm so close that something is about to give. I got people talking to me about becoming brand ambassadors. A lot of listeners are checking out the podcast. Things are moving. And I understand that I have to keep doing this to see the results that I want. And I have to be consistent. And I have to work hard. And I have to focus. And I hope that you can do the same thing with your passions. My name is Spooks McGee. This has been the Late Bloomer Podcast. Peace.
Keeping